I messaged the family group chat. My wedding's this Friday. Would love to see you there. My sister replied, we're busy, don't expect us. My mom added, stop being so dramatic. I just sent back, okay. That evening, what they saw on social media made them instantly regret staying. I stared at my phone screen for a solid minute before typing the message. My hands weren't shaking exactly, but there was this weird tension in my chest that made breathing feel like work. The family group chat hadn't been active in months, at least not with anything directed at me. Most of the messages were my sister sharing pictures of her kids, my mom commenting with heart emojis, my brother occasionally dropping in with some meme he found funny. I was mostly a ghost in that chat, present but invisible. The message was simple enough. I told them my wedding was happening this Friday and that I'd love to see them there. I didn't add any details about the venue or time because honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted them there at all. But some part of me, the part that still remembered being 7 years old and thinking my family was everything, needed to extend the invitation, needed to give them one last chance. My sister's response came within minutes. She said they were busy and that I shouldn't expect them to drop everything for this. The words were casual, almost dismissive, like I'd invited them to watch me do laundry rather than witness the most important day of my life. Then my mom chimed in, telling me to stop being so dramatic, that I always made everything about myself. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. I typed back a single word. Okay. Then I set my phone face down on the table and went back to work. The thing about being the forgotten child is that you learn to make peace with disappointment early. I was the middle kid, sandwiched between my sister who could do no wrong and my brother who was the baby everyone coddled. I existed in this weird liminal space where I was expected to be responsible and independent, but never quite worthy of the same attention or pride. Every achievement I earned was met with mild acknowledgement. Every struggle I faced was something I needed to handle alone. When I graduated college with honors, my mom showed up 20 minutes late to the ceremony because she was helping my sister move into a new apartment. When I bought my first house at 26, saving every penny for 3 years to make it happen, my family visited once and spent the entire time critiquing my furniture choices. When I got engaged 8 months ago, I called my mom to share the news, and she cut me off halfway through to tell me about my brother's new job promotion. My fiancée understood. She'd watched me make excuse after excuse for them, watched me shrink myself down to fit whatever space they were willing to give me. She'd held me the night I realized they forgot my 30th birthday entirely, too wrapped up in planning my sister's anniversary party. She never pushed me to cut them off, but she made it clear that I deserved better than scraps of affection. The wedding planning had been intimate and intentional. We decided on something small, just close friends and the people who actually showed up in our lives. We'd rented this beautiful garden venue about 2 hours outside the city, a place with string lights and old oak trees, and this gazebo that looked like something out of a storybook. The guest list was 40 people. 40 people who knew us, loved us, actually gave a damn. I hadn't told my family any of these details. Part of me wondered if they even remembered her name. Friday arrived faster than I expected. I woke up in the hotel room we'd booked near the venue, sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains, and for the first time in months, I felt this pure, uncomplicated happiness. My best friend was already awake, making coffee in the little kitchenette, talking about how he'd never seen me this calm before a major event. He was right. There was no anxiety, no second-guessing, no knot of dread in my stomach. Just this quiet certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be. The ceremony started at 5 in the evening. The garden looked perfect, everything bathed in that golden hour light that makes the world feel magical. Our friends filled the chairs, faces I'd known for years, people who'd helped me move apartments and stayed up with me during panic attacks and celebrated every small victory like it mattered. My best friend stood beside me as my best man, and when the music started and I saw her walking down that aisle, everything else just fell away. She looked stunning. That's not even adequate to describe it, but I'm not good with words when it comes to her. She was wearing this simple dress that somehow made her look both elegant and completely herself, her hair loose around her shoulders, flowers woven through it. When she reached me and took my hands, she was smiling so wide it was almost ridiculous, and I realized I was doing the same thing. The officiant was our friend from graduate school, someone who actually knew our story, who'd been there when we first met at that terrible house party, and I'd spilled beer on her shoes trying to introduce myself. He talked about love as choice, about building a life with someone who sees you clearly and chooses you anyway. Every word felt true. When it came time for vows, I'd planned to keep it together. I'd written everything down, practiced it a dozen times. But standing there, looking at her, I started crying about 30 seconds in and just had to push through. I told her she was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't too much or not enough, that she'd taught me what it meant to be chosen deliberately and completely. I promised to choose her back every single day, in the big moments and the small ones, when it was easy and when it was hard. Her vows destroyed me in the best way. She said she'd never met anyone who loved as fiercely as I did while expecting so little in return, and that she spent every day trying to show me I deserved everything I'd been denied. She promised to be my family, my home, the person who would always show up. When we kissed, our friends erupted in applause, and someone popped champagne, and everything felt surreal in this perfect, overwhelming way. The reception was exactly what we'd wanted. Good food, better music, people dancing badly and laughing and toasting to love and happiness, and all those things that sound cliché until you're living them. I danced with my wife. My wife. Those words still felt strange and wonderful. And then with her mom, who whispered that she was grateful I loved her daughter so well. I took probably 200 photos, talked to every single guest, felt my face hurt from smiling so much. Around 8 o'clock, my best friend pulled me aside. He had this weird expression, somewhere between amused and concerned. He told me I needed to check my phone when I got a chance, that my family was apparently losing their minds. I'd left my phone in the hotel room intentionally, wanting to be completely present, but his tone made my stomach drop slightly. I told him I'd look later. Whatever it was could wait. We cut the cake around 9, this ridiculous 3-tier thing covered in fresh flowers that matched her bouquet. We fed each other bites and managed not to smash it in each other's faces, which my wife said was proof we were mature adults. Then we had our first dance to this song we'd discovered on a road trip years ago, something most people hadn't heard but meant everything to us. The evening wound down slowly. People started leaving around 10, hugging us goodbye, making jokes about visiting once we were back from our honeymoon. By 11, it was just us and a handful of close friends, sitting in the garden with the string lights glowing above us, passing around the last bottle of champagne. My wife leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, and asked if I was happy. I told her I'd never been happier in my entire life, and I meant it completely. We got back to the hotel around midnight. She went to take off her makeup, and I finally picked up my phone, more curious than concerned. The screen lit up with notifications. 73 missed calls. Over 100 text messages. My family group chat had exploded with activity. I scrolled through slowly, trying to piece together what happened. Our photographer had posted photos to social media around 7:30, tagging both of us. They were gorgeous shots. Us laughing during the ceremony. The kiss, the garden lit up and magical, our friends surrounding us with so much obvious love and joy. She'd written this caption about witnessing two people who were meant for each other, about the beauty of love that's chosen and celebrated. The photos had gone viral in our extended network. Hundreds of likes, dozens of shares, comments from people I'd gone to high school with and college friends and distant relatives I barely knew, all congratulating us and saying how beautiful everything looked. My family had seen the posts. My sister had called 6 times in rapid succession. Her texts started around 8, asking where the wedding was, saying she didn't understand, demanding to know why I'd lied about the date. Then my mom started calling, her messages escalating from confused to angry to almost panicked. She said I'd told them it was Friday, and this was clearly Friday, so where was I? Why hadn't I told them where to go? How could I do this to her? My brother jumped in around 9, his messages shorter but equally bewildered. He wanted to know if this was some kind of joke, if I was really getting married without telling them where or when. Then the messages shifted. My sister said she couldn't believe I'd excluded them from my own wedding, that this was cruel and vindictive and proof that I'd never cared about family. My mom said I'd humiliated her, that everyone was asking her about the wedding and she'd had to pretend she knew about it, that I'd made her look like a terrible mother. She demanded I call her immediately to explain myself. The most recent messages, sent within the last hour, were almost desperate. My sister said they could still drive out if I told them where we were, that it wasn't too late to fix this. My mom said we needed to talk about this like adults, that she deserved an explanation. My brother sent a simple message asking if I was okay, which was probably the first time he'd asked me that in years. I read through everything twice, then set the phone down. My wife came out of the bathroom, saw my expression, and asked what was wrong. I told her my family had seen the photos and were upset they hadn't been there. She sat beside me, still in her dress, and waited for me to process. The thing was, I'd told them exactly when the wedding was. I'd said Friday. I hadn't specified which Friday, hadn't given them a date or location, but I told them it was happening this Friday. They'd assumed I meant some distant Friday, some future event they could continue ignoring until it became convenient. They'd never asked for details, never followed up, never showed even the smallest interest in being part of it. I'd given them what they always gave me, vague acknowledgement with no real substance. And they hadn't even noticed. My wife asked if I wanted to call them back. I thought about it for maybe 10 seconds, then told her no. There was nothing to say. They'd made their choice when they dismissed my invitation. They'd made their choice every time they forgot about me, overlooked me, made it clear I was an afterthought. This was just the first time there were consequences they couldn't ignore. She kissed my forehead and told me she was proud of me. We went to bed shortly after, her curled against me, both of us exhausted and happy and married. Update 1. I didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. Reading through the comments has been both validating and overwhelming. A lot of people asked for an update, so here it is. The calls and messages continued through the weekend. My mom called 17 times on Saturday alone. My sister sent these long paragraphs about how hurt she was, how she'd always loved me and didn't understand where this cruelty was coming from. My brother sent one message asking if we could talk when I was ready, which I appreciated but didn't respond to. My wife and I left for our honeymoon on Sunday. 2 weeks in Japan, something we'd been planning for months. I turned off my phone at the airport and didn't turn it back on until we landed in Tokyo. There were over 200 notifications waiting. I deleted the family group chat without reading any of it. We spent the first week in Tokyo and Kyoto, eating incredible food and exploring temples and getting beautifully lost in neighborhoods where neither of us could read the signs. It was perfect. My wife kept asking if I was okay, if I was thinking about everything back home. Honestly, I wasn't. For the first time in my life, I felt completely free from the weight of trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. Halfway through the trip, my wife convinced me to check my messages, just to make sure there wasn't an actual emergency. Most of it was more of the same. My sister demanding explanations, my mom guilting me about how this was affecting her. But there was one message from my brother that stood out. He said he'd been thinking about things for a while, about how our family treated me growing up, and even now. He said he'd always known I got the short end, but he'd convinced himself it wasn't that bad, that I was just being sensitive. Seeing me cut everyone off had forced him to confront some uncomfortable truths. He apologized for not standing up for me, for benefiting from a family dynamic that consistently hurt me. He said he understood if I never wanted to talk to him again, but that he was genuinely happy I'd found someone who loved me the way I deserved. I read it 3 times. It didn't fix anything, didn't undo decades of neglect, but it was something. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. My mom sent one final message on the second week of our honeymoon. She said I was tearing the family apart, that my selfishness was going to leave me alone and miserable. She said I'd regret this when I was older, when I realized family was all that mattered. Then she said she wouldn't contact me again until I was ready to apologize and make things right. I almost laughed. The idea that I was the one who needed to apologize, that I was the one tearing anything apart, was so absurd it barely deserved acknowledgement. But what struck me most was the threat of her silence. Like the absence of her attention was the worst punishment she could imagine. She genuinely believed she was withholding something I desperately needed. I told my wife about the message that night over dinner. We were at this tiny restaurant in Osaka, eating okonomiyaki and drinking beer, and I just felt this profound sense of relief. I realized her silence wasn't a punishment. It was a gift. Update 2. We've been back for 3 weeks now, settling in a married life, and trying to return to some version of normal. The whole situation with my family has started to fade into background noise, which honestly feels good. My mom kept her word about not contacting me. My sister sent a few more messages that I didn't read before eventually giving up. My brother has texted twice, nothing demanding or guilt-trippy, just checking in. I haven't responded yet, but I'm considering it. The unexpected fallout came from extended family and old family friends. Apparently, word spread about what happened, probably from my mom's version of events where I'm the villain who excluded my loving family from my wedding for no reason. I've had aunts and uncles reach out, some offering to mediate, others telling me I should be the bigger person and reconcile. One cousin asked for my side of the story. I gave her the short version, and she went quiet for a few days before messaging back that she'd always suspected something was off about how they treated me, but didn't realize how bad it was. She said several other cousins had similar observations over the years. That was vindicating in a strange way. The most surreal moment came 2 weeks ago. My wife and I were at a coffee shop near our place when I spotted my sister walking in. She saw me immediately, and her face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds. She walked over before I could decide whether to leave. She asked if we could talk. My wife squeezed my hand under the table, but didn't say anything. I told my sister we could talk right there, that I wasn't going anywhere private with her. She looked upset, maybe hurt that I didn't trust her enough for a private conversation. She said she'd been thinking about everything, and she wanted to understand why I'd hurt her like this. Not why I'd excluded them from the wedding, why I'd hurt her specifically by doing it. The phrasing told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about understanding or apologizing. This was about her pain, her embarrassment, her feeling victimized by my choices. I asked her if she remembered my 30th birthday. She looked confused, said she didn't know what that had to do with anything. I told her nobody in our family acknowledged it at all because they were too busy planning her anniversary party. I asked if she remembered when I graduated college, when I bought my house, when I got engaged. I asked her to tell me one significant moment in my life from the past decade that our family had actually shown up for. She got defensive, said that wasn't fair, that everyone had busy lives and I couldn't expect them to remember everything. I told her that was exactly my point. I'd spent 32 years being forgettable, being the one who was expected to understand and accommodate and never make waves. The wedding wasn't me hurting her. It was me finally stopping the pattern. She started crying, said I was being cruel, that family was supposed to forgive and support each other. I told her she was right. Family was supposed to do those things. Then I stood up and my wife and I left. I felt shaky afterwards, but not guilty. My wife told me she was proud of how I handled it, that I'd said what needed saying without being unnecessarily harsh. That helped. Update 3. It's been 2 months since the wedding now. Life has genuinely never been better. My brother reached out again last week with a longer message. He said he'd been in therapy working through some family stuff and his therapist had helped him see patterns he'd been blind to. He wasn't making excuses, but he wanted me to know he was actively trying to be better. He asked if maybe we could get coffee sometime. No pressure, just the 2 of us. I thought about it for a few days and decided to meet him. We got coffee last Saturday and talked for almost 3 hours. He didn't try to defend our mom or sister, didn't minimize what I'd experienced. He mostly listened while I explained years of feeling invisible, and he acknowledged it without caveat. He told me some stories from his own perspective that made me realize he'd been dealing with his own version of family dysfunction, just different from mine. We're not suddenly close, and I don't know if we ever will be, but it felt like a start. He asked to meet my wife properly, said he wanted to get to know her and be part of our lives if I'd let him. I told him maybe, that I needed to take things slow. He understood. My mom sent a message through my brother asking if we could talk. I told him to tell her no. He didn't push, just said he'd relay the message. The thing I've realized through all of this is that I spent most of my life waiting for my family to see me, really see me, and give me the love I kept trying to earn. The wedding wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about finally accepting that I couldn't make them choose me, couldn't force them to value me, couldn't earn something they were never going to freely give. Excluding them wasn't punishment. It was clarity. It was me saying that I deserved to be surrounded by people who actually wanted to be there, who loved me without conditions or caveats, who showed up because they genuinely cared. My wife is my family now. Our friends are our family. And maybe someday my brother can be part of that too, if he proves he means what he says. But I'm done chasing crumbs of affection from people who've shown me exactly who they are. Someone in the comments on my original post said something that stuck with me. They said that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who make you feel small. That's what I did. And I've never felt bigger, more whole, more completely myself than I do right now. The wedding photos are hanging in our living room. Every time I look at them, I see exactly what I'd hoped to see. Two people who chose each other, surrounded by people who chose to celebrate them. No ghosts of obligation, no empty seats filled with resentment. Just love, uncomplicated and true. That's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us.